Hi there, and welcome to the Curious Collective podcast, conversations designed for the conscious community to bring awareness to those holistic practices that help us live our best life. So tap into the wisdom and knowledge of our guests to extract what you need to heal, transform, and live as your true soulful self. So I am absolutely honored today to have with us the amazing Mark Bentley. We've been connected for quite a while now, maybe about 2 or 3 years through Healy. He has a business that's called Unseen Alchemy, and I would love to pass this over to Mark so he can introduce himself and what it is that makes his heart sing. Hi, Mark.
Hey, Katie, and thanks for having me on. And yeah, big shout out for everything you're doing out there. It was awesome getting to spend some time with you in Bali just recently. So
Oh, that was fun.
it was great. But yeah, it's so Unseen Alchemy is the new business that I'm launching and that I'm operating under, as I felt a real need to bring everything that I love, because in our other conversations, I've got a very expansive interest, from deep in technology and the future of blockchain, decentralization, politics, all those things, to spirituality and a sense of purpose and what drives us as humans. And so this is something that's been a fascination for me my whole life. And so my greatest passion really comes from witnessing the human experience, witnessing the capacity that a human has to go from, this broken, wounded, human that feels like it's a victim of the world. And you know how it's like, and they can seem like they're almost, they're not intelligent, they're and then as they start cultivating self-awareness and self-worth and start reconnecting to themselves and understanding the game that they're playing in, through that connection of reality and idealism and realism, and to watch how they just crack open, and to be a part of that, to be able to witness that and create spaces where that can happen. It's like you get to see these seeds flowering, and you don't know what that seed is. Someone gives you a bunch of magic seeds in a market, you take them home and you plant them, and one might be an oak tree, one might be an orange tree, and they've all got different gifts. And so my real passion is in really being part of that process of witnessing someone go from their seed and crack open. And it's such a gift to see and be one of the first to see, as they bust and they come out and share their genius, and they actually become more intelligent. Suddenly you realize that lack of intelligence wasn't a genetic thing.
And how they show up when they step into the light, what that looks like for each individual. Like, wow.
Absolutely, right? Absolutely. And that's been a big part of my journey, and is to really go through that process of what is me and what I was told is me, right? And what should be me. And and so this is the slogan for Unseen Alchemy that will be launching, and essentially this podcast is essentially my launching moment. So I appreciate you, Katie, for kind of being part of that trigger. And the slogan that's kind of sitting there for me right now is Unseen Alchemy, transform your reality.
Yes.
Because I feel like what I want to provide now is a community, an environment, a framework for being able to understand the insanity that's underway at the moment, the speed and the rate of transformation, both and out. I've never experienced anything like it in my life. And it's incredibly disorientating. Even for those of us that have done a lot of the work, it's still incredibly disorientating. And ironically, as the world is kind of changing structure, the old structures are breaking, the political structures are breaking, economic systems. It's like the caterpillar in, the old butterfly analogy. The caterpillar goes into its cocoon, but then first it has to die. The caterpillar cells, the old cells, actually begin to turn into mush. So its form and structures break down into mush. And then the imaginal cells that hold the programming of the butterfly begin appearing in that mush. And then the old cells attack it, thinking it's so foreign and so different, and it's a threat to the way it is, but it's already dying anyway. And these imaginal cells come up and they start growing and they start, spreading. And as they start spreading, they get stronger, and then they end up taking over and using that mush, that old cell, but caterpillar cell, and transforming it into the butterfly wings, the new reality. That's the natural process that I feel that we're going through. And right now, we are deep at the cutting edge of the caterpillar structures breaking down. And there's many of us, like yourself, the listeners to this show, and people out there. The reason that you're here listening to this is because you are an imaginal cell that has, and that's a scientific name, by the way, imaginal cell.
Oh, wow.
And so we imagine something, we have it in us. And so it's our job now to see, how can we connect, how can we unify in synergy around each other, so that we can hold, even though we're being attacked by the old cells from fear and misunderstanding, but rather than attack back, we can help support the restructuring of that energy so that it can become what we all want it to become. And then everyone wins.
Heck yes.
That's what drives.
That's brilliant. I've actually never gone into that much depth around that process, and it makes so much sense. We can often reflect on things that happen in nature and bring it into this context to get the most out of it, to understand what the heck it is we're going through, because I agree with you, it's chaos.
Right. And it's divine chaos.
Yes.
And through the work that I do with the Gene Keys, which is a great body of work created by a guy called Richard Rudd, who wrote this book over 10 years ago. It's the 64 codons of our DNA, but it's also the 64 hexagrams of the I Ching, which is a 5,000-year-old auricular system that the emperors, etc., would use to make decisions in times of change. And it's come back into our world in the last 20 years with more of a modern interpretation that's kind of helping us to understand that process of the caterpillar to the butterfly, and where we're at in it and why it's there. And when you drop into this, these shadow frequencies help us understand, what it is that is driving us to become uncomfortable enough to transform and to shift, and this caterpillar analogy, this is really what's happening. When we're talking about chaos, because like you were saying, it's chaos out there, right? From the Gene Keys perspective, chaos is a shadow behavior of our genetic DNA that has a survival mechanism attached to it. And so it actually serves a purpose. And the gift, when you look at this frequency band of chaos, as you raise your self-awareness and you raise the frequency of this aspect, it becomes innovation, the gift of innovation. But in order for innovation to happen, we require a kind of divine chaos.
Yeah.
And so it's like, when you go into a kid's bedroom and, like I'm sure this well, where there's Lego all over the floor, right?
Yeah.
And as a parent, we're going in with a kind of mind of like, it's like all we see is pain. We see, we're going to step on something, it's going to dig in your foot and all the rest. Or like, oh my God, they broke that fancy Lego model they bought and now it's a mess. But for a child, when they're still in their innocence, that chaos is an infinite field of potential that can be turned into anything. But when it's in a figurine, like you say, a Star Wars ship that they bought, they feel like they can't change it. No, I can't break that. I can't take anything from that. But if someone just smashes it, now there's no choice, right? And so in a way, that's really when we shift our perception of these shadow natures of our world, we begin to realize that all of them have survival mechanisms built into them.
What a great analogy, the Lego. That completely landed for me then. So good.
Well, it's important to get it back to the real world reality of things, right? Because we can talk, these fancy concepts to the end of the universe and back, and I used to.
Yeah.
But in the end, it's like chop wood, carry water, before enlightenment, chop wood, after enlightenment.
Oh, I love it.
We've got to bring it back to reality.
Absolutely. And when we sat together in Bali, we went on this deep conversation around Gene Keys, and I know that's what you work with. Can you tell us a little bit more about Gene Keys?
Yeah, absolutely. So as I mentioned, it's this old system that isn't something fresh and new, but the way it's being reinterpreted, the way it's being brought through is in a very new way. And so one part, in a sense, you could say that the Gene Keys is like the map and the compass to your hero's journey in this lifetime. You get a profile from your time of birth, which there'll be a link where, I'm sure we'll share with the podcast, where people can go and you'll be able to get a free Gene Keys profile. And when you click it, you put in your date of birth and time of birth, etc. And you'll get a profile that essentially is the map and compass to unlocking your genetic potential. And the way that it does this is through giving us a healthy framework we can use to recalibrate the way we perceive ourselves and the way we interact with reality. So just like we recalibrated our meaning of chaos through that conversation, you know, you can use that to go, I'm not a failure. I'm not a mess. I'm somebody who's just not in the right environment for my genius. And it helps to get clearer about what environment is most conducive to bringing out letting that seed flower, without needing to project onto others to say it's your fault, it's society's fault, it's that fault, because that leads us to the shadow of victimization. And when we're in victim, we're giving our power away, we're giving our sovereignty away. And so the Gene Keys to me is just one of the most beautiful and I feel clean, dogma-free, liberating tools that we can use just to hold space for ourselves as we're really birthing into the world.
What do you feel that you've discovered through using Gene Keys for your own growth and transformation?
What's that? What have I discovered?
Yeah.
So I remember the first time I had a human design reading, it'd be over 10 years ago. And human design is like you could say it's almost like the masculine version of the Gene Keys. It's more structural. It's more like the workshop manual, the mechanics manual in that sense. And but it's the same information. And I remember when I first had my reading with that, I remember crying and being really just emotional, because for the first time in my life, I felt like someone could actually see me, you know, and could actually see what I kind of innately knew in my bones, but never really had the words or permission or understanding, you know. So it's been a great reflection to help me understand. For example, with my son's mother, we split when he was about 1 year old. We weren't really together when he was conceived. We were dating at the time, and it was at a festival, and we took acid, and it was, you know, back when I was 28. And so it was this wild party of an adventure, but it was actually a very spiritual evening. Like we connected on a level that I saw this innocence and this beauty, because we were beyond the superficial characters for that 24 hours. And then we conceived a child after it. And then that then led to one hell of a journey when I realized we weren't compatible. Both of us had our wounding this was not going to work very well. And it was very easy for me to blame it on her, to say, you know, to point out all the narcissistic tendencies, to point out this or that and all these things, because I have a very psychological kind of brain. That's very easy to you know, leverage the outside world to feel better. But what the Gene Keys really did for me was it gave me a framework that held me accountable, you know, to not be able to go into that loop, to really, and I remember getting almost angry at the system, because it got to this point where I remember Richard Rudd saying, you know, that in the end, it's not for you to fix your partner or anybody else. That's not how it works. It's just to sort yourself. And I used to sit there and feel like, but that's unfair. How come I got to do all the work? How come I got to, you know, take responsibility for the suffering being generated here and change it? And it really helped me to understand myself, and where I was using very subtle techniques to manipulate that looked very positive to the outside world. So I looked like the good guy. I'm a master of looking like the good guy while I'm manipulating, you know, to get what I want. And it helped me to also understand and give myself forgiveness, realizing that it wasn't from a nasty personal place. It was from self-defense. It's because I perceived my reality or my relationship or something as a threat, you know, to me and to who I am and to what's possible. So it really gave me a lot of tools and permission slips. It's like Bashar, the channel, Daryl Anker would often talk about, you know, the power of permission slips, that in the end, we live in this illusionary reality where it's not so much about what's real, but it's about the permission slip that allows us to more effortlessly drop into creating that reality, in a sense. And the Gene Keys gave me a permission slip, in a sense, to be able to really say, for example, I'm a 5-1, that I am a fifth line, which is all about heresy. I'm a heretic. I'm here to look to the future. I'm here to see what's coming and challenge it.
Absolutely,
And
you are.
right. And so it helped me understand, okay, I'm not about being right there for the local community, for the Thai. Like, I love community, but I can't stay in communities. I need to be almost dancing between them in my
Yeah.
own little hermit cave out the back. But put me on a stage in front of 1,000 people and I'm completely comfortable,
Yeah.
you know. And that's part of my fifth line nature. And it helped me acknowledge that, because it sounded a bit like I just wanted to be on stages. My ego wanted to be seen, and I felt bad about that. So I wouldn't let myself do it. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, so it's helped me relax more into like just being in podcasts, to speak just
Yeah.
naturally
Yeah.
in that sense.
Letting your wisdom flow.
Yeah.
And the one, what is the one in the 5-1?
So the 5, when you're looking at profiles in human design, it's also part of Gene Keys. The 5 represents in a way, the costume of your life's work, how you bring yourself out into the world, what you do in the world, which as a 5 is to have a voice that has influence on strangers, on people outside of my close circle,
All of
and
these
also about
listeners.
to everyone around, right? And it's efficiency, it's about practicality, it's about how do we move forward. Whereas the first line, when you look at this, is in more of the unconscious realm. It's more of like a body, and it's our sense of purpose, right? It connects to that aspect. It's about who we're here to be. And as a first line, I'm here to be an anchor for people. And specifically, mine's a 43.1. So I'm here to be an anchor for epiphanies and breakthroughs. So that means I'm not here to do and give you the breakthrough. I'm here to hold space and be an anchor, stable, while others can go through their process. And there's always that stability. And I found that that's actually the role I play in companies. It's the role I've in the past. It's the role I play in family. You know, in that sense that when I'm in my zone, I can be an anchor for that. And everyone kind of can at least feel a certain stability by connecting in with that. Now, when I'm then in my what we call not self, when I'm reacting, when I don't feel safe, essentially, because of some perceived reality in my head, then all of a sudden, that first line anchor energy suddenly becomes the loner. That's the keynote for it, right? I want to be alone. I just want to be disconnected from the whole world. Like I could go in a cave and, you know, just disappear.
Yeah.
And that's actually a defense mechanism that's serving me because it means I have overextended outside of where I'm meant to be, outside of my natural organic authority. I've allowed external authorities to influence what I am doing, still my responsibility and fault for doing so. And I need to now withdraw my energy, that fifth line energy that's out there to the world, because it's in a projection field. I need to withdraw that so that I can come back to myself again.
This fascinates me, and it's amazing because you think of these people that don't have this sort of framework or code and don't know about it, and they're going to say psychologists or people in the 3D world, and they're telling them this is why you're doing this and this and this and this as a blanket solution that they give to everyone that walks in. And it's like, but you're not all the same. Like this sort of work to me is so fascinating. It's so amazing because, as you've already talked into, it allows you the space to work within what is actually your sort of blueprint.
Yeah, right.
I love it.
And that's the sacred efficiency that I find I'm passionate about. And that's what Unseen Alchemy is going to all be about, is sacred efficiency in transforming your reality.
Yes,
you know?
so good. So how did you get to doing the work you're doing today? Like I know even since when I first met you to now is like you've been on some sort of fast track. So what's your journey to the now?
Yeah, and it is, Katie, it's one of the hardest things, one of the hardest questions. Like you can ask me the meaning of the universe and all the rest, and I could talk forever. But if you say, Mark, what do you do? Forever, I've just been, my dad, even to this day, is like, I still don't really know what you do, son.
But I'm proud.
It's good that you're doing well, you know, you can understand dollars, you know. But no, my journey, I mean, the nutshell version, Katie, because I could literally speak for hours on this, is when I came into this world, I came in as the younger brother of two bigger brothers, and it was in the 80s. I'm born in 1981. So, the 80s were the wild time. That's like, Stranger Things kind of was great revisiting what it used to be like when
Yeah.
kids would just go out when the sun comes up, come home when the sun comes down,
Mm.
and the craziness. And it was chaotic. And my mum used to say, Mark, you were always such a happy kid, always walking up and down the street. And I'd go to all the neighbors and every, so I was always this connector, this social thing. And then as I got older, I wanted to be a performer because I had visions of being on stage, and I loved, making people smile and the rest. And then as a teenager, I'd be the drunk psychologist, out the back of the party, sitting on the fence with somebody falling apart and,
Yep.
just talking to them, helping them come back. And it was just something that was just so innate in my being, is this fascination with humans, how they work and interacting with that. And then it was, but then everyone told me, oh, you should be a lawyer, you should be a doctor, you should be this, you should be that. And nothing spoke to me. So I ended up just going as an exchange student to Norway when I was 17, lived there for a year away from family, and just began this crazy journey as a bartender where I thought I was going to be a performing world champion bartender. That was my goal at the time, Tom Cruise style. So I was flipping bottles and mixing the fancy cocktails. But my favorite part about bartending was having this bar where people would come in on their own. And by the end of it could be a Monday night, Tuesday night, in the middle of the week, I'd have just randoms turning up for a drink, and maybe a couple would come in. And by the end of every night, we'd have a party.
Yeah.
Or, it'd just be like everyone's crossing, mingling. And I used to love just connecting people and watching what happens when these talk and when that happens.
Oh,
And
yes, I would love
so
that.
Right. And so I realized that I was an amateur psychologist from that standpoint. And my work in the bartending world just helped me to really get hands-on experience without having too much dogma already restricting it.
Yeah.
And then from there, it was a lady that gave me a book. She used to come in and get tea during the day. And she gave me a book on the Enneagram and meditation. And I read about Osho's active meditation and realized that my high-powered sports bike that I had, this 1000cc beautiful machine that I used to just love riding, was my meditation. I realized that was my time, because when you're riding really fast, especially in Norwegian mountains during winter, you have to be so on point. There's no room for thoughts. And that was where all of a sudden this whole new world really started opening up. So this was probably about early 20s. And at that point, it then led me on this long journey. By the time I got to 28, I thought I had all the answers. I thought I understood manifestation and consciousness and all these different things, the cocky kind of, it's a process. I think it's just the journey, And at that point, it was like the God said, oh yeah, well, let's test that now. And that's where my young man came into the world. And then that then led me to facing dark demons I hadn't had to look at. And from there, human design and the gene keys and the Mayan Dreamspell, which is more esoteric body. But these tools gave me the framework to refine myself through the fire of that challenge, that transformation, to hone my sword. It's like I had a general shape of my sword as a such of who I am. And then the challenges and those tools helped me to sharpen that to that point. And so now I work with people and I get to do what I've always loved. But now I actually have a bit better idea of what I'm actually doing.
Oh, I love that. And what a journey you've been on. I would love to have hung out in one of those bars. I love also people watching and the human experience. So I know that was a connection we had. In Bali was just chatting about humans in general. But
I was sitting there, we were sitting at the dinner thinking, we could sit for days on end and just have an amazing time watching it walk past us.
And the conversation, it's your brain works in a similar way. It just was jumping from this to that to this to that to this to that, but we always knew what we're talking about, and I really value that. So thank you.
Yeah, well, Katie, this is something I feel and Richard speaks a bit to this, but I feel like we're going to see the rise of the polymath. So people have been trained since the Industrial Revolution to be very one-track mind, to be very focused with education, a specialist in one field. And I feel like that's one of the problems and challenges we have in this world is that's great, but now the fields can't communicate. Now we're not talking to each other. And I love when I meet someone like yourself that has that capacity to be able to go on a quite fractal exploration of, which seems that it's jumping between themes, but everything is interconnected. Nothing is separate. And that's something that I think we're going to see more and more, that as people embrace their genius, and this is where I see, the Gene Keys profile, etc., as being a great way to unlock that genius, because that then allows the polymath mindset, the Leonardo da Vinci mindset, where you can actually be aware of all the different aspects, in that sense. And that's what I love about you and our conversations.
Like super consciousness in a way. Yeah,
right.
Tapping into it all. I love it. Yes, and there's only a few people that I've met that I can do that with so far. I'm looking forward to the rest dropping in. Through all of this beautiful exploratory work that we're doing as we go down these rabbit holes together.
Yeah, that's right. And thank you. You've just given a little extra clarity for Unseen Alchemy, because I'm still forming the community side. Like, what does it look like? What offering is actually going to be useful for people that's not there? And so really it does feel like it's a place for us to come and play and to be open and to explore the cutting edge of everything.
Definitely. Oh, I'm keen. So for those people and those listeners that want to find more out about Gene Keys, the Mayan work, any of this beautiful unseen alchemy that's coming forth, anything like that, what advice would you have for them?
So I'd say probably the first step, which can be fun, because the ego always likes a little, what's in it for me? Let's be real. We all love it. And it's, as my old friend Brian Kelly would say, it's the ego hits for all the right reasons. And I think it's important to acknowledge that, because we got to be inspired and have a kick. And one of the best ways would be to go and get your free Gene Keys profile. So that would be unseen-alchemy.com, and it'll be up and running by the time this goes live. There'll be a link there for where you can get a free profile in the Gene Keys. Hit that. It'll take you through to the Gene Keys website. It'll give you a breakdown of 4 paragraphs that are about your life's work, the life works challenges, radiance, which is all about, what kind of environment is good for your health and well-being, and your purpose. So it'll give you a taster. And I'm blown away by how bang on a generic paragraph can be. And so it's a great way to get a feel for it, remembering always the Gene Keys are not telling you who you are. They're giving you a framework for you to discover that for yourself and define that for yourself.
Can you say that again? That's amazing.
It's very hard to repeat. Yes, that basically the Gene Keys, they're not telling you who you are, right? Because that's a mistake most people make with astrology and all these different tools. Is again, they're looking for somebody else to tell them, to take responsibility for it.
I see that a lot, actually. That's great advice.
And so
use it as a framework or a tool to bring out who it is that you are at the true essence.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so enjoy that. I'm going to be posting blogs. I can't wait. I'm craving a place to express, because as we talked about a bit before as well, I've got all these ideas that are just flooding in right now with the new technologies. There's Chat GPT, AI, there's all these tools that are turning up that they're brand new and fresh and changing our reality right now. People may not realize it, but literally the end of 2022 is going to be weird. Really weird. It is. It's already started.
Let's change weird to interesting.
Yeah. Well, for me, weird is interesting. I love weird. But it's going to be very interesting. And it's going to be quirky. It's literally like going down Alice in Wonderland right now. And we've never had a better time to decide how it goes. And in order to do so, we need as many of you listeners that are listening to this out there to step into your own power, to claim your own sovereignty. And that requires radical self-responsibility for how you hold yourself in the world and how you go. And in doing so, we get to have more imaginal selves out there that can help make sure that the butterfly that we turn this chaos and mush into doesn't look like a pterodactyl.
Yes. Oh, awesome. I love that. Everyone listen to that last part again. That was just golden nuggets of wisdom. So, and my bit that I want to add to that is just get curious, ask the questions, and that's where the darkest cave holds the greatest treasure. Just get in there and explore and have fun, people.
Amen. Right there, Katie. That right there is everything. Just be curious, have fun. Absolutely.
Thank
Absolutely.
you so much for your time, Mark. It's been an absolute honor to have you on our podcast, and I look forward to having a chat with you again soon.
Yay. Thank you, Katie. It's been an absolute pleasure and anytime.